So I have been asked several times, which do I think is better, Buddhism or Stoicism? I don't think that's the right question. I think the right question is, when the world gets hard, when life gets hard, what do you actually reach for, and does it work? When I was a kid, my dad used to love this Lynn Anderson song. It's what popped into my head when I was thinking about this. I never promised you a rose garden. I didn't understand it then. I understand it now, and I think it's pretty relevant. Nobody promised easy. Both of these traditions knew that before any of us showed up, and they spent a long time figuring out what to do with it. Now, before we get into it, I know somebody is going to show up in the comments with, "But God is the answer." And look, that is yours. I am not here to argue with it. But just so we're working with accurate information, Stoicism isn't a religion. It's a philosophy, a practical framework for how to think and how to live. It has some spiritual texture to it, sure, but there's no deity, no doctrine, no worship. And Buddhism? Well, yeah, it's a religion. It's considered a non-theistic one, meaning there's no creator God at the center of it. It doesn't require you to stop believing in God. The Dalai Lama has literally said his goal is to help people become better Christians, better Muslims, better whatever they already are. St. Augustine read the Stoics. Thomas Aquinas read the Stoics. If anything, some of this stuff is already living inside your tradition. It just didn't come with a label. And for what it's worth, the Buddha never claimed to be a god. He never asked for worship. He explicitly told people not to take his word for anything on blind faith, to test it against their own experience and see if it holds up. Buddhism isn't asking you to believe anything. It's offering a path to understand your own mind a little bit better. That's it. Okay, moving on. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Rachel. Today we are obviously talking about Buddhism and Stoicism. Not debating them, not ranking them, just looking at what they actually say about how to get through hard things, and why two completely different ways of thinking keep arriving at the same place. You know, I've watched a lot of videos on this topic while I was putting this together, and most of them are either a philosophy lecture or a list of similarities and differences. This isn't that, I hope. This is more like, here's what these two traditions actually hand you when something lands hard, and why you don't actually have to pick one. Okay, first, both traditions start with the uncomfortable premise. Life is hard, and a lot of what makes it hard is something we're doing to ourselves. Buddhism names it first. Dukkha, dissatisfaction, friction, the low-grade sense that things aren't quite right. Not punishment, not a flaw in the design, just a condition of being a conscious creature that wants things and lives in a world that doesn't take requests. That's the first noble truth. It's not a downer, it's a starting point. Stoicism comes at it from a different angle. Epictetus, who had, to put it kind of mildly, a rough life, said it pretty plainly. People are disturbed not by things, but by their opinions about things. The event itself is neutral. What you add to it is where most of the suffering comes from. Different entry points, same observation. The thing happened. Most of what's making it worse is you. Second, Buddhism's answer to suffering starts with impermanence. You know, anicca, everything changes. The good stuff, the bad stuff, the you that's going through both. Nothing holds still. And the Buddhist practice isn't to find that depressing. It's actually to feel it clearly, in real time. The hard thing you're in right now, it's already moving. It won't be this forever. Not necessarily because things get better, but because things get different. That is not meant to be a consolation prize. That's just the way reality works. Stoicism gets to the same place going down a completely different road, and that road is mortality. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. It's not a morbid exercise. It's a clarifying tool. Marcus Aurelius used it constantly. He'd remind himself that emperors before him had turned to dust, that everything he was worried about had a shelf life. that the scale of most human suffering shrinks a lot when you hold it up against the fact that none of this is permanent anyway. Buddhism sits with impermanence in the present moment. Stoicism stares at it from the end and works its way backwards. Same destination. One gets there through presence, one gets there through looking directly at death and not flinching. Then there's theme number 3. This is the pairing that looks like a contradiction, until it doesn't. Buddhism teaches non-attachment, not detachment. That is a different thing, and it's not what Buddhism is asking for. Non-attachment means you stop requiring things to be anything other than they are. You can love something, want something, grieve something. You just stop white-knuckling the outcome. Buddhism says the suffering doesn't come from the experience itself. It comes from the clinging. Loosen the grip, and a surprising amount of the pain goes with it. Stoicism, in almost the same breath, tells you to love your fate. Amor fati. Not to tolerate what happened, not to make peace with it from a safe distance, to actually choose it, to look at everything that has landed in your life, the good, the bad, the stuff you'd never have picked, and say, this is mine, shit show or not. Not because you wanted it, but because it's real. It happened. And arguing with reality has a perfect losing record. Buddhism says to loosen your grip. Stoicism says pull it close and call it yours. They sound like opposites, but they're not. Both are asking you to stop fighting what's real. One does it by letting go. The other one does it by claiming it. And depending on who you are, where you are, or what the thing is, one of those is going to feel more right for you than the other. Most of us end up using both at different times without even realizing that we've switched tools. Lynn Anderson knew. Nobody promised you a rose garden. What you do with the garden you actually got, that's the whole thing. And there's theme number 4. Okay, one more pairing, and then we'll land this. Buddhism has a concept called the middle way. Not wishy-washy, not flip-flopping, not splitting the difference. The path between two extremes. Between collapsing into suffering and bracing so hard against it that you forget to breathe. Between pretending everything's fine and being taken down by the fact that it isn't. There is a steadier, saner place to stand between those two, and that is what the middle way is pointing at. Stoicism's version is called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Imagining ahead of time what could go wrong. Not to catastrophize, to stop getting ambushed. Because most of what destroys us isn't the hard thing itself, it's the shock of it. The, why is this happening to me? Pre-imagining difficulty takes its ambush power away. You've already met it. It's already yours. Buddhism finds the middle ground in the moment. Stoicism plans for the terrain before the moment arrives. Between those two, you are covered coming and going. Now, here is the reality check. Neither tradition promises a good outcome. That is not what either of them is selling. Buddhism doesn't say that if you practice presence hard enough, nothing bad will happen. Stoicism doesn't say that if you think clearly enough, life will go your way. What they both say is that how you respond to what happens is where your actual life is. Not in the events, in the response. And I think that holds at every level. The small stuff, flat tire, bad meeting, the thing somebody said that landed wrong. The medium stuff, the relationship that ended, the door that didn't open. The bigger stuff that I won't get into today. And the stuff that's happening out there right now that none of us individually can fix. That a lot of people are genuinely scared about, that keeps landing in the news cycle every frickin' morning before most of us have even finished our coffee. Both traditions were built for exactly that. For the thing you didn't choose and can't control. For the world that's not taking requests. I have 5 words tattooed on my arm. It is what it is, which sounds like resignation if you don't know what it means. It's not. It's Buddhism. It's Stoicism. It's the whole thesis of both traditions in 5 words. Stop arguing with reality. That is not giving up. That's the only starting point that actually works. And that brings me back to Lynn Anderson and the song my dad loved. Go listen to I Never Promised You a Rose Garden. Whether you've heard it 100 times or never once, actually listen to the words this time. Because that song, a 3-minute country tune from somewhere in the early 70s, is both of these traditions in a catchy melody. Nobody promised you easy. Nobody promised you fair. What you do with that information is the whole question. She just made it something you could tap your toes to. 2,000 years of philosophy. 3 minutes. I beg your pardon. So, which do I think is better? Buddhism or Stoicism? Wrong question. The better question is the one we started with. When the world gets hard, what do you reach for, and does it actually work? Buddhist answer, be here. Let it be impermanent. Loosen the grip. Stoic answer, get clear. Take what's yours. Love the fate you've got. And maybe try to see it coming next time. And one more thing, you don't have to choose. That is not a cop-out. That is the point. These aren't competing philosophies fighting for the same real estate in your brain. They're different tools for different situations. Sometimes you need to soften. Sometimes you need to harden. Sometimes you need to zoom out and remember that nothing is permanent. Sometimes you need to look at the hard thing and just decide that it's yours. You'll know which one you need when you need it. You probably already do. Here's the thing about ancient wisdom. Whether it's Stoicism, Buddhism, Taoism, or any of the other traditions that have been quietly doing the work for thousands of years, there is a reason they're still here. They're not still here because they're trendy or because somebody marketed it well. They're still here because they work. Because humans have always had hard things happen to them. And these were the people who sat down and thought seriously about what to do with that. The philosophy doesn't care about your politics, doesn't care about your faith. It doesn't care what year it is. It just asks, when something hard lands, what do you do next? That question has never gone out of style. So, that's what I will leave you with. Not, why is this hard? Most of us have been asking that one long enough. But when it's hard, when it's really hard, where do you actually stand? If you have been stuck in the middle of something hard and couldn't figure out which way to go, I hope something in here gave you a place to stand. Thanks for watching. Take care of you. Reggie and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.